Cool. All right. Good evening and welcome to our webinar, Pre-Professional Pathways here at Gonzaga University. We're excited to see you tonight. Thank you for joining from all over the United States and around the world. My name is Levi Garcia, admission counselor here at Gonzaga. I'll be one of your hosts for the webinar. Um, you may have noticed that your chat box is turned off at the moment. But for the meantime, you're more than welcome to type in where you're tuning in from to kind of start as a quick check-in. Cool. We've got Alaska, Spokane, Canada, Denver. Awesome. A lot of different places out there around the world. Oregon, Wisconsin, Boise, Idaho, Cambridge Island. Awesome. Cool. All righty. Well, like I said, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Pre-Professional Pathways webinar here at Gonzaga University. To start off with introductions, again, I'm Levi Garcia, admission counselor here at Gonzaga. I'll be one of your hosts for the webinar. You may have noticed that you aren't able to turn on your cameras or audio. The reason for this is just so we can record for those who are unable to attend tonight. We would like to love to answer your questions throughout the presentation. So you'll see the Q&A function. You're more than welcome to type those in there. And we will have to answer them as well too. Later today during the presentation, we'll also host a small time for answering any additional questions that arrive. We will try to get through as many questions as we're able to, but again, please feel free to use the chat box or the Q&A function, I should say, periodically for us to respond as well as colleagues. We will also share some web pages as well too for your benefit. So we will hope you find them helpful. Now that I have some several colleagues that I would love for you to meet, and we'll start with Will, who's co-hosting this webinar with us tonight. Will?
Hi guys, my name's Will DeClotz. I am an admission counselor at Gonzaga, and I primarily work with students from Colorado and Oregon. Again, just feel free to throw those questions in the Q&A function, and then we'll also have a time at the end for questions directly with Catherine as well. And I'll pass it off to Catherine. Take over.
Awesome. Thanks, Will. My name is Catherine Brackman. I am going to be sharing some information with you tonight. I am our Associate Director in Career and Professional Development, where I get to wear a few different hats, but a couple of them are leading our Health Professions Pathways program, which is essentially our pre-health advising here at Gonzaga. And I also facilitate our pre-law advising. And so those are two things that I'm going to talk with y'all about tonight, our pre-law and pre-health at Gonzaga, what that looks like, what you can expect if those are two career pathways that you are interested in pursuing, learning about at GU, and then going on to those professional programs. So I'm really excited to talk with you. I am a Gonzaga alum myself. I graduated from Gonzaga. I actually have 2 degrees from Gonzaga, and it is really special to me to be able to be helping current undergrads on their career journeys. And so I'm really excited to share with you all the ways in which we do that, specifically for pre-health and pre-law at GU. Levi, do you have anything else that you want to share before we get started, or should I go ahead and launch my presentation for tonight?
Feel free to launch it. Time is yours.
Okay, terrific. So I am going to share my screen here and then ask the all important question on Zoom. Can you see my screen?
We can see it.
Okay, terrific. So here we go. So we've done our introductions, and just to give you a sense of where we're going to go, how we're going to set up, I'm going to start with pre-law, and then we're going to launch into pre-health, and then I will leave some time at the end for Q&A. Again, Levi and Will answer questions that they see coming through the chat, or they'll leave some questions for me at the end. So starting with pre-law at Gonzaga, what that looks like. And I first want to start with, what does it mean to be pre-law? And so we're talking about students at Gonzaga who are coming to pre-law from all sorts of majors. So they're getting their bachelor's degree here at Gonzaga, but interested in, after GU, pursuing a legal education. So going on to law school and interested in all sorts of careers in the legal field. There's so much that you can do with a law degree. This is certainly not an all-inclusive list, but things like business law, working in the government, family or juvenile law, patent, copyright, intellectual property, criminal law, or maybe something like energy, natural resources, or environmental law. So maybe you already have a sense of what you think you would want to do if you're in this interest of pre-law, what you would want to do with a law degree, or maybe you just kind of are still exploring that, but these are kind of what it means to be pre-law. So you're studying something at Gonzaga, wanting to go on to law school. What does it mean academically to be a pre-law student? So at the undergrad level, you can be any major, and we would really encourage you to study something at Gonzaga that you genuinely want to study. There's not like one major that law schools are looking for. And in fact, they are really open to a wide variety of majors that they're going to accept in the admissions process. Similarly, there's no specific coursework that you really need to take. It is really beneficial to study or build your skills in things like critical thinking, reading, writing, forming arguments, because those are the skills that you're going to need to prep for the LSAT, which is the law school admission test, and also in law school. And those are really a really important part of our core curriculum. So we have philosophy courses and other courses that are really asking you to hone in on those skills. But beyond that, we really would say explore what you're interested in as a major, or if you have kind of from that previous slide, something that you think you want to pursue once you have your law degree, maybe take some elective courses or focus your attention with a major or minor on what you're interested in. And these are just some examples, things from constitutional law to Native American government politics, employment law, environmental policy, crime, social control, and justice. You could see how if you had a very specific interest going into this, you could really craft some studies around preparing you for understanding the issues, causes, people that are affected by different things in the law. But fundamentally, there's really no specific major that you need. The one exception to this might be if you wanted to go into something like intellectual property or patent law, it is really helpful to have a scientific background. So that would be really the only exception. Other than that, like choose a major that you just are really fired up about. In terms of co-curricular experiences or co-curricular involvement, there is not a singular thing that you need to do as a pre-law student, but there are some common experiences that pre-law students have and that we offer here at Gonzaga. So we have a debate team, mock trial team, a model UN experience, and all of these programs are really great. They go and compete against other schools, and they're often really successful in helping students form some of the skills that they would need in law school. So forming arguments, performing, so to speak, on a stage. So if particularly you were interested in being a trial attorney, some of these experiences would be really helpful, or something like Model UN, getting to understand international policy. We also do have lots of study abroad programs, but one in particular, again, if you were interested in real policy work or international relations, there is a Washington, D.C. semester internship experience. It's kind of a study abroad opportunity that is really of interest to some pre-law students. So lots of opportunities. There are so many clubs as well that are involved in different issues and causes, but these are some things that many of our pre-law students are attracted to. Similarly, in terms of getting legal experience and figuring out, is this something that I really for sure want to do? I've always been interested in law, or I have some interest in law. How do I really hone in and make sure that this is what I want to do? Again, there's not one specific internship or experience that you have to do or you should do as a pre-law student. So usually when students come to me or our other pre-law advisor and say, what should I do? We usually come back with a question and say, what are you interested in? Let's find an experience that helps you really hone in on that interest. But there are some experiences that I want to share that are kind of unique to pre-law, and some that are unique to Spokane. So some of our students are interested in, there's a Washington State legislative internship program in which students do have to take a semester off, but they get to go over to our capital in Olympia and be involved in a lot of policy work. So again, that would be for someone that was interested in doing that long term, or just maybe they want to get a taste and figure out if that's something they want to do with their legal degree in the long term. We also have in Spokane both the district and superior court, and that provides a lot of opportunities just for observation or to have an internship or for some volunteer opportunities. So we have things like court appointed special advocate, volunteers, which are helping youth kind of navigate the court system. You're like the title suggests, you're advocating for them. We also have a municipal community court, which is kind of an alternative court system. So again, you're advocating for community members going through that. We also do have opportunities for students to get internships or maybe shadow or somehow get involved with different local firms or organizations that they're interested in. So maybe a student that's interested in environmental law might get involved off campus with an organization that's really focused on this type of work and really understanding what are the issues involved there. So lots of opportunities. And again, it becomes a conversation with our advising team, like, what are you interested in? How can you get involved? In terms of outcomes, kind of where are our students going when they're interested in pre-law and applying to law school programs? Our 5-year acceptance, our average acceptance rate to law school is 86%. And in terms of where our students are going, top destination-wise in terms of numbers, it's fairly concentrated in the West. So Washington and California, where a lot of our students are from and maybe want to end up practicing law in the long term. So Gonzaga, Seattle universities, University of Washington, also Santa Clara, UCLA, and also Georgetown University, which is over on the East Coast in DC. So maybe folks that are interested in either policy work or in international relations. So that's where our grads are going. And so we're really proud of all of our students that are ending up in law schools, truly all across the country, but this is where they tend to be concentrating. I mentioned that I am facilitating our pre-law advising, so I want to talk a little bit about what that looks like, who's involved, and how we support our pre-law students. So I'm really fortunate to work with our pre-law advisor, who is Father Brian Pham. He's one of our Jesuits on campus, and he wears a lot of hats on campus, but of them, he is a practicing attorney. He teaches at the law school. He also has at times served on the law admissions committee there. And it's just a tremendous resource for our pre-law students. So he's someone who intimately knows what it means to be an attorney, understanding the process, understanding what our law students are going through. And so he and I meet and do one-on-ones with our students. We host workshops to really help pre-law students understand what the process is, from that early career discernment phase, like is law what I really am interested in doing, all the way up through, okay, I'm getting ready to apply, can I get some help and advice on my application, and everything in between. So he's a really great partner in this work that we're doing with pre-law advising. Some of the events that we host throughout the year, and I will mention that Gonzaga has a law school as well, and we are really fortunate to have a really great partnership with them. We host a lot of workshops with them, and they are so great about just educating students about the process of law school, and everything from intro to pre-law, financing your legal education, kind of demystifying like what's a law school scholarship. So I am so fortunate that we have them as a partner. So these are some of the workshops we host throughout the year. Again, everything from like, what do you need to know as a pre-law student, to how do you pay for law school? Again, one-on-one meetings. And then because I'm in the Career Center, we host career and internship fairs throughout the year so that you can start building some of those experiences as well. That hopefully gave you some info. Again, we'll do some Q&A here at the end of the pre-health session. But if you're looking for more info or have questions, Our pre-law website has a lot of great information on it. So that's gonzaga.edu/pre-law. If you have questions about pre-law, feel free to reach out to our Career Center website, careers@gonzaga.edu. It can find its way to me. And certainly if you have admissions questions, reach out to the admissions team. They can answer a lot of the questions about undergrad admissions at Gonzaga. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and talk about pre-health at Gonzaga. And then again, go ahead and add questions about pre-law to the chat, and Levi or will answer those, or I will get to those at the end. So don't feel like you have to save the questions. If they're in your brain right now, add them in the chat and we'll get to them. All right. So for pre-health at Gonzaga, let's talk about what that looks like. Similarly, when we're talking about pre-health, what does that actually mean? So we're talking about students who are interested in pursuing graduate or professional school after they leave Gonzaga, and really focused on roles as providers. So those that are providing direct patient care. And there are a whole bunch of careers that are listed here, everything from medicine to dentistry, speech language pathology, optometry. We also do have nursing listed here with kind of an asterisk. I do want to point out that those are students who are going to be pursuing maybe careers as nurse practitioners. So they're not in our nursing program. We do have a nursing program at Gonzaga that you can get a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, but just know that you do need to apply and be accepted into the nursing program if that is something that you're interested in. So we do support students that are interested in nursing in the long term as well. But if you're interested in studying nursing at Gonzaga, please know that that is a kind of a direct admission program. If you have questions about that, feel free to add that in the chat, and Levi and Will can direct you. But when we're talking about pre-health, this is something that you're getting a degree at Gonzaga in something other than a health-related career, and then you're going to be getting your professional health-related career as a grad student. So in all of these fields. So let's talk about what that means academically. So as an undergrad, similar to what I talked about for pre-law, and this maybe is going to be surprising, but we would really encourage you to be any major as a pre-health student. There are courses that you do need to take as a pre-health student if you're preparing to go on to medical school, physical therapy school, dental school, etc. But you can pursue any major. So you could be an English major and be pre-med. I share that as an actual example of a student who did that several years ago. So here are some of the courses that you would need to take. It looks a little bit different for each pathway that you're on, whether you want to go to occupational therapy school or med school, but generally having a background in the sciences. So a couple semesters of bio, anywhere from 2 to 5 semesters of chemistry, again, depending on your pathway, usually some math, some physics, and then depending on your field, you might need to take some anatomy, some psychology, maybe some additional biology. But depending on your major, you're going to have some overlap here. So if you're in a science related major, you're probably going to have a lot of these courses that you need for your professional school already built in. If you're in a non-science major, you're just going to need to add these classes into your 4-year plan or whatever your timeline is to graduation. And that's what our advisors help with, kind of figuring out, okay, what are the courses that you need for what you've chosen that you want to focus most of your attention on for your undergrad studies, and then what are those extra courses that you need to make sure that you can be prepared for and get admitted into med school, dental school, etc. Co-curricular involvement. This is really important for health professions programs. They want to know that you've developed strong interpersonal skills, that you can work within a team, because healthcare does work within a team in terms of providing care to patients. So there are many opportunities to do this at Gonzaga. I want to shout out a couple of offices on campus that really do a great job in providing opportunities on and off campus. The Center for Community Engagement is what we think of our service office on campus, or our volunteer office. They coordinate a lot of programs for students, but they also partner with organizations off campus in terms of, connecting students that may say, hey, I have an interest in this population or this cause. I really want to get involved in the Spokane community in this way. The CCE office, as we call them, can say to a student, oh, we know of a great organization in town that is involved in doing this type of work. Our Center for Student Involvement and Leadership is kind of our leadership office on campus. That's our student government. They're coordinating all of our clubs and organizations on campus. And that is a tremendous way for our students to get involved as well. Our students are really active on campus, and it's a great way for them to build those teamwork skills, those leadership skills as well. And we also, to shout out a few of our student clubs and organizations, we have our what we call a Health Careers Association. That's our main pre-health club on campus, and they're hosting panels. This weekend, I think they're hosting a suture clinic that's very hands-on. We also have a local chapter of SACNAS on campus, which is not specifically pre-health, but they're really focused on promoting diversity in STEM. And so they host a lot of events and professional development throughout the year as well. So we have ways for students to get involved on campus. I want shouting out just a couple of examples. Science in Action is a group on campus in which they're going into local elementary schools and they're providing science lessons to elementary school kids. It's very cool. A lot of our pre-health students are involved, and it's a great way for them to practice how do you articulate very complex scientific information to people that don't have that background. And that's sometimes what medicine and healthcare is about. So explaining these very complex terms to people that just really need to know, like, what is their diagnosis? How do they have a treatment plan? So it's kind of a way that they're already starting to build those skills in a way. And then A Moment of Magic is just one of my favorite clubs on campus. And what they do is they dress up as fairy tale characters and Disney princesses and superheroes, and they go into hospitals and other places and situations in which kids are really vulnerable, and they are just kind of bringing some joy to their life. And I just think that's really fun. And again, some of our pre-health students have been involved in that organization. So there's truly no shortage of ways for students to get involved in their own way. Research experiences are also a great way to get involved on campus. Research is not necessarily a requirement for health professions grad programs, but it is a really great way to build some of the skills that schools are looking for. So critical thinking, problem solving, teamwork. Medicine is also based on research, so it's really valuable to have an understanding of what that process looks like. So our research on campus is directly between undergrads and faculty. We don't have a ton of grad students on campus that our students are competing against for those opportunities. So we have some student-led and initiated projects. We also have some that are faculty-led, but a lot of our students are doing their own projects, which is pretty cool. Sometimes research is required as part of a student's major, or it's embedded in the curriculum. And sometimes it's something that the student is choosing to pursue, maybe for some extra credit or during the summer, or maybe for pay. So there's lots of different ways in which students can do research. And then we also have some local area universities that are providing opportunities. Washington State University has a sleep and performance research center that a lot of our pre-health students are doing research with. The University of Washington has some research opportunities. Many times our students are going over to Seattle, but they are reserving some spots for us. There are some opportunities in which our students are collaborating with the med students at UW. So lots of ways for students to get involved in research. For students that really are interested in research, the Center for Undergraduate Research and Creative Inquiry, we call that our CERCI office, they have a really great listing of the opportunities involved. And they also maintain a really good database of off-campus opportunities for students. So maybe if a student is not going to be here for the summer and wants to find a summer research opportunity, they're really great about connecting students with those. Clinical opportunities. So this is something that's really, really important. It's how pre-health students can really affirm that working in healthcare is what they want to do, and it's how they can demonstrate that they've done their homework, so to speak. Like, this is how I know that I for sure want to be a doctor, or for sure want to be a dentist. Spokane is a regional healthcare hub. We serve a really wide range from Eastern Washington all the way through Montana. So a lot of healthcare comes to Spokane. We have 6 hospitals. We have a high density of clinics. We have several health professions grad programs. So we have a couple med schools. We have some PT programs, OT programs. So lots of opportunities for our students to learn and connect with current grad students, and just really a plethora of volunteer, shadowing, internship, employment opportunities. Some of our students are working while they're attending Gonzaga, or they're choosing to maybe take a gap or growth year, and they're working full time and earning income while they're gaining that experience. So we have lots of ways in which students are doing that and pursuing that on their own, or we're providing some resources to connect them. We've taken students on trips to some of these places as well. So a couple years ago, we took students on a trip to that sleep lab that I mentioned earlier. So that's what's pictured here. This past fall, we took students to St. Luke's Rehabilitation Medical Center, which really focuses on they're in acute care that's really focused on the rehabilitation. So for PT and OT, that was really interesting. So lots of ways for our students to learn about the healthcare field. I mentioned grad programs earlier, that we have several graduate programs in town, including a couple of med schools. And I want to talk a little bit about the partnership that we have with the University of Washington School of Medicine. So we do have a partnership. It's been around for several years now. So the University of Washington in Spokane has a campus, their Spokane Foundation site for their med school. So they have 120 medical students that are doing their first 2 years at really their first 18 months of med school in Spokane. And then they also have PA students that are completing their entire education here in Spokane, as it's one of their sites for University of Washington. So what that's providing is UW has their anatomy and physiology lab, that for our students that are taking anatomy and physiology, they get some access to that lab. So the anatomist at UW is very collaborative with our program here, with our human physiology program. So like our nursing students, our students that are taking A&P, so a lot of our pre-health students are getting some access to that. Lots of programs, events, and mentoring. We have several of our own graduates that have gone on to University of Washington, and they're always willing to come back and talk to classes, talk to clubs, just meet one-on-one, mentor. There's some formal programs and events that happen as well, like different mixers and such. So there's also research that happens. Several of our faculty teach at both the med school and at at Gonzaga, including one of our pre-health advisors. And I think that gives them a really unique perspective on like, what does it look like to be a med school student, and how can I pass this on to current undergrads, to be able to share with them, like, you know, how am I teaching at the med school versus how am I teaching at the undergraduate level? And so there are some really unique opportunities there. I do want to mention, because we get this question a lot, there's not an admissions partnership as part of this. So UW is not saving a certain number of spots for Gonzaga students. However, our students do tend to do very well in the admissions process for UW, in part because UW has a strong preference for students from Washington and the surrounding states. Many of our students come from those states and want to to stay and practice there. And UW also has a really strong focus on social justice, and that is also a very core value to Gonzaga. So there's not a set number that they're saving for us, but again, our students tend to do very well in the process because of who they are and because of those residency ties as well. Speaking of outcomes, these are actually 4 of our students that were part of the enrolling class at University of Washington for this past fall. And so I've shared this information for med because that's the strongest population that we have for GU. Our 5-year average acceptance for med school, which includes both MD and DO, is 73%. And our students are also really successful in applying to other programs, dentistry, PT, pharmacy, vet, as well. So, but just kind of sharing some info because we know this is a question that we get a lot. And also wanted to put a face to some of those stats as well. We're really proud of our students wherever they end up, and wherever they end up practicing and then end up giving back to our students as well. In terms of how we're supporting our pre-health students, I mentioned earlier our Health Professions Pathways program, which is really our pre-health advising. So we're really proud of the fact that we are supporting students and alumni from all majors. And so we're supporting them through one-on-one meetings, workshops. I also teach a 1 credit application course for juniors and seniors that really is like a mock application. We walk through, practice interviews, we write a personal statement, we go through really what do you need to know to be ready to apply. And these are some of the things that we're talking about in those meetings, one-on-one or in a workshop. So everything from how do I know for sure that this is what I want to do? How do I know specifically what field I want to go into? So I'm on the fence between being a physician or being a physician assistant. I'm on the fence between PT or OT, all the way up through getting ready for my application. Again, I've shared a lot of info tonight, but certainly there are always more questions. So if you have more questions, I'll answer a few here tonight. But similar to pre-law, we also have a pre-health website, which is gonzaga.edu/prehealth. And then if you have questions that you think of later or we don't get to tonight, you can reach out to our pre-health team at h3p@gonzaga.edu. And then again, if you have more specific admissions questions for Gonzaga, please reach out to the admissions team. They're happy to answer those. And I am happy to answer questions that were coming through. I know that there were some things in the chat. I could see that pinging a little bit. But for questions that maybe Levi and Will might have for me, I'm happy to answer those.
Yeah, so we have a couple of questions in the Q&A function. One of our guests was wondering about how many Gonzaga undergrads apply to medical school.
Ooh, specifically for med school. On a given year, I'd say we have around 50 that apply every year. That's like a ballpark.
Awesome. And then another one of our guests was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the new neuroscience program offered here at GU.
Ooh, I'll try. Yeah, so our neuroscience program is new this year. It is similar to biology, but it is definitely, it focuses on the brain, right? So it's very, I say narrowly focused in a positive way in terms of it has a more narrow focus than what you're going to have in something like biology. It is housed in our psychology department. So I think it's kind of this blend of the neuroscience, I'm not an expert. I would say reach out to Dr. Meeser, who's amazing. Neuroscience is kind of the study of, I believe the physical and not there's another word that I'm searching for. Like it's very much focused on the brain and like the pathways and how the brain works. So I think it's a really great major. But if you have specific questions, I would reach out to Dr. Meeser, who is the director of that program. He's a neuroscientist. He's going to answer it way better than I can.
Awesome. Yeah, we have another question. Just how competitive are the research opportunities at Gonzaga?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it probably depends. There are some programs that, like, if you're looking on the Center for Undergraduate Research and Creative Inquiry, there are some programs that are pretty competitive. Some of like the fellowship opportunities, some of the, I would say there is a program that we have with the University of Washington that happens over the summer. Like that's going to be pretty competitive, but not in terms of getting hundreds of applications for only 5 spots. It's not overwhelmingly competitive, but I would say there are more students applying than there are spots for. So by nature, it's competitive. I would say in terms of other opportunities, there's a lot of information out there, and students are encouraged to get involved in research early. They always host information sessions or mixers where students can go and talk with faculty about their research and figure out, like, is this something I would be interested in? Is this a faculty member that would take on a freshman or a sophomore? Or is this research a little bit more advanced and this faculty member really needs someone that has more foundational knowledge and really needs juniors and seniors? So I think it really depends on what that research experience looks like. How many spots are available in that lab? Is it like a 3-person lab? Is it a 10-person lab? But I would say, students really want to get involved in research. There are opportunities for them to do it. It's not a guarantee. They do have to go after it. But I find that our students that really want to usually can find them. And then again, there are some majors where it is a requirement that they're doing research. So then they have to, whether they really want to or not. But I think that can be a really great experience as well.
Yeah. We also have a student inquiring about Gonzaga, if Gonzaga has a 3x3 law program.
Yeah, good question. There is a 3+3 pathway. It is specific to Gonzaga law. And that is somewhat recent, I'd say within the past year or so. There is information on the pre-law website. So for students that are interested, I really encourage them to look at that because there are some pretty specific I would say requirements for that, or just kind of notes about that. So one is that a student does have to be pursuing a degree in our College of Arts and Sciences. And the program is really intended for students that are coming in with a really clear direction on what they want to study, because it is essentially they're needing to wrap up their Gonzaga undergraduate experience within 3 years. And then also they really need to be driven on law and what they want to do. I think from a law admission side, because the law school is determining who gets admitted into that program. This is not something that the Gonzaga undergrad is determining. They're really looking for students that are pretty mature, pretty coming in with some life experience, and again, like really have a strong sense of the direction they want to go into. And again, that's kind of coming from the law admission side. So definitely though, look into that if that's something that you would be interested in. But just know that it's not something that you're applying for as an undergrad. It's something that you're working with your academic advisor on and saying, hey, can I make this work? Could I be ready to apply for this at the end of my junior year? And again, know that it's just with Gonzaga law too. So if you're like, hey, I think that I would want to go to law school somewhere else, it's just an affiliation with GU law. But definitely look into that and see if that's something that you'd be interested in.
Yeah, and I know you might have addressed this next question a little bit in the presentation as well, but it might be good to repeat for everyone since we got the question. Just, is there an advisor specifically guiding pre-med students?
Yeah, good question. So explain a little bit about how advising works at Gonzaga. And so this might be a little bit longer. Each student has a primary advisor at Gonzaga that is associated with their degree. So they have somebody who's helping them map like what do they need for their major to get them to graduation. And then in terms of somebody helping them with what do I need for med school or what do I need for dental school, that's where H3P, that's where the Health Professions Pathways program comes in to make sure that students are understanding that information. So that's me. I have another couple advisors that are helping with that. So it's not like you have that person assigned to you. It's more of a resource that students can come to make sure that they're getting that info, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Yeah, we have another question coming in. Can other majors beside human physiology utilize the partnership between UW and GU and the facilities in the new building as well?
Good question. So I would say the human physiology students utilize the building the most. The human physiology program is physically located in the health partnership building. So their professors are in there, their classes are in there. The human physiology, as part of their curriculum, they take anatomy and physiology, which is one of the benefits I mentioned of having access to the anatomy and physiology lab, which if you don't know what I'm talking about, we're talking about cadavers. So we're talking about people that have willed their bodies to University of Washington for educational purposes. So just if people didn't know what I was talking about, that's what we're talking about. So I would say human physiology students have the most access, but students, in terms of the anatomy and physiology lab, students that are taking A&P would have that access as well. I think maybe some other classes do, like I don't quote me on this, but like maybe the neuroscience students do perhaps. And the reason I mention this is because Dr. Meeser teaches at the med school, so he might utilize some of those resources as well, but don't quote me on that. And then in terms of like access to other programs, events, mentoring that happens, all students would have access to that. So like when the University of Washington med students are hosting an event, they would share that with me. I would share that with all of our pre-med students. When they just started coordinating a mentorship program and they said, hey, we want to mentor GU undergrads. They sent that to me. I send it to all of our pre-health students. So it's a little, I would say, again, human phys students have the most physical access, but all pre-health students have access to the opportunities that the partnership provides in some way or another.
Yeah, and then another question coming in, does the law school, actually, we'll just go to this next question. I can answer that. With the public health BA, how could one integrate prerequisites for med school?
Ooh, good question. I don't have the BA in public health curriculum memorized, but if I recall, it is not a super high credit major. So I do think it would be fairly feasible to incorporate those prereqs into it. It just would require some planning. So I would work with I saw that you had added some info about public health and added in Dr. Pickering's info. It would be, sometimes I think about adding, especially for non-science majors, sometimes I think about adding the prereqs as like adding a minor. It's not a minor, it's not an official minor, but it in terms of credit load, that's almost how you could think about it. In terms of adding in those classes. So I think it's pretty feasible. And I've definitely had conversations with Dr. Pickering. Like she knows that there are going to be public health students that are going to be pre-med or pre-dental or what have you. So it's definitely feasible.
Awesome. And this is kind of a two or a couple folded question. So the first question is 3 plus 3 the only route to Gonzaga Law? I know the answer, that's a no. But and then could a 4 year track be pursued and then be accepted to Gonzaga Law School? Yes. If so, do you have a percentage of acceptance to G Law versus 3 plus 3? I think they're more just asking like, what's the 4 year track like, and is that similar to the 3 plus 3, or what's the difference there?
Yeah, good question. So I don't have admissions info or like acceptance info comparing both of them because we've actually the 3 plus 3 pathway is recent for us. So we don't have anyone who has gone through that process of trying to be accepted as part of the 3 plus 3. But I would say it's absolutely not the only pathway. And I would really encourage students to really think seriously about the 3 plus 3. Like it's not intended to be a pipeline. It's not, I would say it's the majority of students, like the vast majority are going to be on that traditional, I put that in quotes, like 4 year or whatever your pathway to graduation is. If you're like coming in, as a transfer student, like whatever that looks like for you, that's going to be the vast majority of students. It's going to be, only a small number of students that really kind of meet that criteria that the law school and that program is demanding of students for the 3 plus 3. There are other options too. Like a student could do a 4 year or an undergraduate degree, and there are accelerated law options. There's like an executive JD program that gets students through. You don't get summers, but you're going through a law degree quickly. So it's something that I think is for a very select number of students, in terms of like also what they want their undergraduate experience to look like too. Like the undergraduate experience is great. Like there are opportunities to study abroad and get involved in a lot of different ways and like graduate with your class that you came in with. So I think there are a lot of things to think about when you're talking about an accelerated pathway. So it's not something at all that I would push on a student or say this is the only pathway.
Great. And it looks like that is the last of our questions we have in the Q&A chat.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm so glad that folks took the time to learn a little bit about pre-health and pre-law and just Gonzaga in general. I love getting the questions, even if I couldn't answer them fully about neuroscience and public health. And so I definitely encourage folks to reach out to those department chairs and program directors. Reach out to your admission counselors, Will, Levi, or if you're already working with somebody, and you have other questions about GU, like ask the question and they will connect you with the right person. If there's one thing that I could say about Gonzaga, like people are always willing to help and get you connected with other people that want to help. So ask questions. If there's a question that comes up for you later on, send it to Levi or Will or the admissions team, and they'll send it to me and I'll answer it. But thank you again, and we hope to see you at Gonzaga.
Cool. We have one last second question from a guest wondering if you, Catherine, are you going to be at Gonzaga Experience Live to answer specific questions?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I will be at GEL. I will be at the academic fair in the morning. So that's where the majors are there. So I'll be there answering questions for pre-health and pre-law. And I'll also be at the parent and family social as well, answering questions. So yes, I will be there. I hope to see many of you there if you get a chance to visit, or if you get a chance to visit throughout the year as well, and come see our beautiful campus. It's starting to look like this. Yeah, thanks
Awesome.
all.
Cool. Thank you, Catherine. Well, everyone, it's been a pleasure being with you here this evening, and we do appreciate your time. Like Catherine mentioned, we also have several in-person and virtual information sessions, interviews, and daily campus visits. Please feel free to sign up for those by visiting our visit and virtual Gonzaga websites. But we wish you all the best with your college process and hope you'll let us know how we can help. But thanks for attending, everyone, and for your interest in being a ZAG, and take care tonight.